So welcome guys, it's Andy here from D6 Evolution. Now today's video is my 10 big predictions for what I think is going to be coming up in 9th edition 40k. Today is about my predictions for 9th edition of 40k, and I am super excited for 9th edition, let me tell you. Though that being said, 8th edition has been a fantastic edition, and it's been so good it's even made me start a tactics channel. I've liked it that much. Though there are some things which I think could do with a refresh, things which could do with a change, and the rumours are that 9th edition is coming. Coronavirus may have delayed it a bit, but I think given that GW, a lot of the things they're going to be releasing towards the end of the year are going to be reliant on 9th edition, I don't see them holding it off for too long. So a lot of these predictions I've come up with, they're things that I've already seen in 8th edition. Maybe they're a subtle little thing which has only been tried out for one faction, and I suspect that's GW just testing the waters before they roll it out for a bigger audience in 9th edition. So without further ado, this is my 10 big predictions for what I hope to see in 9th edition 40k. So, big prediction number 1. How CP is generated. Now, 8th edition has brought in command points and stratagems, and I thought that was such a big boon to 40k, and it's been so much fun to use them. However, one thing has really jarred with them, and that is your elite soldiers, your elite armies, they don't get any command points, like your custodies. You'd expect them to have all the tactical options available to them, whereas hordes of orcs and untrained soldiers like cultists, they get loads of command points to use on stratagems. So the whole thing seems the wrong way round. Now, when you look at 8th edition, GW clearly have been trying a few things out, and I expect some of these things to roll over into 9th. For example, they've tried with the Imperial Knights, they've given their super heavy detachment up to 6 command points. They've done I think it was the Red Corsairs Battalion from Chaos, and I think they tried some of Drakari as well with multiple patrol attachments. So there are ways that you can give elite armies more command points. Now, in the recent Psychic Awakening books, another elite army, Grey Knights, got an interesting psychic power where they can get a very easy psychic power, I think it was Warp Charge 5, to get a command point a turn. Now, again, that's a fantastic way of giving a super elite army another 5 or 6 command points over a game. So how do I think that's going to translate over to 9th? Maybe every army is going to have the same potential to get command points. It could be that actually you generate command points through the game rather than getting them all turn 1 and being able to blow all your stratagems turn 1. So hopefully 9th edition expands on how you can build army and lets you build your armies in thematic ways, but gives you the appropriate amount of command points to use. I think 9th edition is going to be really interesting on this front, and I really suspect this is going to change. Okay, big prediction number 2. Now this one's going to be slightly controversial. Line of sight changes. I think we're going to see something, guys. So as everyone knows, in 7th edition, you had to target the core part of a model, and you could only kill what you could see. Whereas in 8th edition, if you can see one spear tip or one guy sticking an axe up in a squad, the entire squad is fair game. Now, that kind of leads to a bit of a feel-bad moment, and I think it kind of breaks immersion. And for me, when that's happening, that's a big sign that GW is probably going to change something up. I can see why they did it for 8th edition, because it keeps things simple. If you can see the unit, you can kill the whole unit. There's none of this argument around there. Though I think in terms of gameplay mechanics, it doesn't quite work. And the second part of line of sight that I think is probably going to change is ruins being see-through. Now, you can see that the ITC, they made a massive improvement when they said ground floor of ruins were line of sight blocking. It's been absolutely fantastic to play that way with, it makes a much, much more tactical game. Though it's not very thematic to say, maybe all the ground floor windows are a little bit too dusty to see through. And I can see that even in Games Workshop's own tournaments, they've been adopting essentially ground floor of ruins and line of sight blocking. Though I suspect to see in the actual in the actual rules for 9th edition, we're probably going to see more thematic things like a fog of war, such as, you can't shoot through a ruin if your opponent's on the opposite side of it. And then maybe even individual rules for different Sector Mechanicus terrain. I think we're going to see big changes there, because I don't see GW not putting holes in all of their all of their terrain kits that they do. Next big prediction, sticking with the same theme as the last one, is terrain rules. I think they've been a little bit janky in 8th edition, and they probably need a bit more expansion. So the things I've been having an issue with is that you can attack models through a wall. You can block your opponent's models from moving through a wall by just standing a little bit back from the other side of it, so they can't actually fit their model in there. And of course, you've got your invulnerable unit sitting, 1.1 inches high on top of a little ammo crate or other part of a ruin, and assault armies can't actually attack them. Now, I think a lot of that jankiness is probably going to change. There may well be set new rules for Sector Mechanicus terrain, as well as generic rules for ruins as well. Hopefully they don't make it too complicated by making too many different sorts of rules. Hopefully they just have one general rule for ruins that tournament players can use. But let's see if they can make things slicker, because I think there's a lot of room for improvement with the terrain rules. Okay, so prediction number 4. Hopefully they're going to be standardizing a lot of the more common rules or similar rules in 40k. Because let's face it, guys, there's getting a lot of rules, there's getting a lot of abilities in this game, and a lot of them are subtly different. So I think, for a start, they need to start standardizing the basic things like how rerolls work. So instead of just updating them as the books come along, just update them all at once. And I just think there's room to get rid of all of that confusion. And then you've got more standard abilities like a Tau drones. Savior protocols may work in the same way as the Iron Hand stratagems, the cognated martyrdom. Trying to keep things as simple as you can. They did that with the fly keyword, actually. When they decided to change it, they changed it all at once for every single army. And I thought that was a really simple way of doing things. Though they've kind of dragged their feet with, like I said before, with rerolls for different chapters. Some of them work before modifiers, some of them work after modifiers. And they've been kind of just updating them as they gradually do codexes, where I think if you just had a common rule set, you'd be able to update it all at once and everyone would know where they were with these things. Okay, so number 5. I think the fly keyword's going to change. If for no other reason that the fly keyword always changes. Whenever those rules writers get a chance to change the fly keyword in any FAQ, they make it different. And honestly, it's kind of messy at the moment. It works different in the movement phase, it works different in the charge phase, it works different in the actual assault phase after that. It's just a really, really messy rule at the moment, and it needs to be simplified. Maybe it's just going to be that you measure from one point to the other point, whether you're moving up terrain. It doesn't matter. I think they just need to simplify what they're going to do with it. Or maybe they're just going to make it really bizarre. Maybe it's going to be that you get to use the fly keyword on turn 2 and 4, and only if you roll a 4 up on a d6. Who knows what GW are going to do with it? I won't be surprised whatever they do. Okay, so number 6. I think the character keyword's going to change. And in particular, how you can target characters, because I think this has been one of the most powerful rules in 8th edition so far, is how characters can't be targeted. You can hide a little unit of scouts at one end of the board, and providing they're closer to the enemy, even if they can't be seen, you can't shoot that character hiding at the back of the board. And that's led to some really odd interactions. It's led to a lot of people taking fire bases of untargetable characters such as Talon Masters, Chaplain Dreadnoughts, and I think I've seen some signs in 8th edition already that GW is experimenting with bodyguard style units, units which have to be in proximity to the character to able to take the wounds. They've done this with the Ultramarines, their bodyguards. I think the Vitreous Guard, I'm probably pronouncing that terribly, someone leave a comment down below. Death Guard have some Terminators as well, who can do that, and there's other things as well. There's other mechanics in the game. I think the Dark Apostles have one as well. They've got little followers who can take bullets for them as well. So yeah, I think it's probably going to change to a character has to be near a unit rather than it just has to be closer to the unit. Because I think that makes a lot more sense in terms of gameplay, that you can't you're not screening for a character at the other end of the board just from hiding behind a wall out of line of sight. It doesn't thematically make sense, and I think GW want their rules to feel right. So I think that's probably what's going to change. And I say we've seen these signs in 8th edition, and them experimenting with those bodyguard rules already. Okay, so number 7, I expect to see changes to morale. And the reason being is that morale effectively hasn't really existed in 8th edition. It's not been relevant. Either you run small units of MSU style Space Marines, and honestly, if you're losing anything to morale, it's because the unit's already dead, so it doesn't really matter. Or you're running a Horde army. Now, I'm pretty sure nearly every single Horde army in the game has ways to make their hordes fearless. So the units where it was meant to work on, things like Tyranids, Orcs, Genestealer Cult, they've all got ways to make themselves fearless, so it's completely pointless. So I expect to see a complete reworking of how morale works. I'd love to see it, because I think morale is a really cool part of the game, and it's a way to counteract, bringing huge units. So I think we're going to see big changes to how morale works, and hopefully it's going to be relevant again. Okay, so number 8. I think that unit coherency may get a little bit of a tweak. It's not going to change completely, but I think there's going to be a bit of a tweak here. Reason being is that I think there's been some problems with larger units in the game, like a big unit of 30 or 40 cultists, for example. They can spread out across a huge amount of the board, and they can almost have most of their unit behind a big line of sight blocker and just put little tendrils out to the various objectives. So you can never kill the unit, you can only just kill some of it, and they can sit there on multiple objectives. The other thing is I see a lot of people doing, including myself, because I think it's an awesome tactic, is conga lining, like my Death Watch out, for example. You can charge one unit on one side of the board and then bounce off into an completely different unit. So I think there's going to be some changes to how coherency works. For example, I was using my Dark Angels, and I couldn't believe that my land speeders still have to have a 2-inch coherency to all the other land speeders in the squadron. And it got me thinking, maybe they're going to change up how coherency works. Maybe for some units, such as vehicles, they'll have bigger coherencies, and for other units, they're going to have smaller coherencies. So if you're a mass of boys or something, you're going to maybe have a 1-inch coherency. And if you're an elite troop like a Custodes, or you're a vehicle like a land speeder, you can have a much bigger coherency. For Custodes, for example, it would feel much more like they were lone heroes if they had a 3 or a 4-inch coherency between each model, so that they could march up the board almost being independent fighters. Okay, so number 9, rerolls. I think there's going to be less rerolls in the game. I think they use up far too much time. The recent tournament before lockdown, I ran a whole bunch of aggressors and centurions with bolters, and they all had rerolls, and it was just really dull. And every time someone tried to charge them, I felt like crying, because it was just going to be, I had to roll so many dice. I think moving a lot more towards less rerolls and more just like +1 to hit, +1 to wound. It just speeds up the whole game. Okay, so for my final prediction number 10, and this is going to be, how modifiers stack in the game. So I think 8th edition, we were seeing a lot of things which units could functionally become unkillable, usually by stacking negatives to hit, such as Eldar Flyers. Possessed, a unit of Possessed could go up to, I think, -4 to hit. It was crazy. It meant that some units in the game physically couldn't even hit those units. Now, GW does not like Death Stars. It does not like unkillable units. So I think we're either going to see in 9th edition a very limited way that modifiers can stack together, or we're going to see core rules changes which stop it from having so much effect, such as units may always hit on a 6, We've already seen that with Orcs in the 8th edition. Maybe GW will follow suit and just make it part of the core rules that units will always hit on a 6, just like they always fail to hit on a roll of a 1. They'll probably do the same with wounding as well. Like units will always wound on a 6 regardless of modifiers. Because at the moment units will wound on a 6. But you know, when there's modifiers like -1 to wound, they don't necessarily always wound on a 6. So there we have it, guys. That was my big predictions for 9th edition, and I'm super excited for whenever it comes out. I think it's going to be great. It's going to be a much slicker version of 8th edition, I think. So comment below, let me know what you think. I say some of our predictions are hopes, some of them are based upon what I've seen from 8th edition already. So yeah, comment below, let me know what you think. Let me know if I'm completely off track, and maybe, you know, we'll look back on this in, you know, 3 or 4 months time, hopefully if 9th edition comes out then, and we'll see whether I was right or not. Anyway, take care, and the next video we're going to be doing, I've already had a chat with Manny Chima, who was ranked #1 ITC player in Europe, and he's going to be giving me his top tips for being a better 40k player. So, guys, hopefully see you in the next video. Take care.